It's been about 5 years since I abandoned computers and decided to do all of my recording using multitrackers or other DAWless type devices. And in that time, one thing has become very clear. That approach is not for everyone. In this video, I want to talk about the reasons why DAWless or multitracker or computerless recording might be right for you, and also explore some of the ways of working that don't actually work that well using this kind of setup. Now, it's a very broad topic, but it's prompted by a very specific problem that I have been facing in my recording world. At the start of December 2024, I decided that I wanted to sit down and finish a Christmas song that I had been sort of working on for the last couple of years, and then to record it using roughly the same workflow that I used for a dozen other songs earlier in the year. I got pretty jazzed about this idea, and I started making all these point of view, real-time writing process type videos on my channel that are very unusual for me, but that I hoped would be interesting and maybe even expose some real truth about the writing process. So I did a bunch of writing in front of the camera, and when I felt like I had a good starting point, but not necessarily a complete song, I moved here into the shed. I sat in front of this Model 12 and started recording. I thought to myself, oh, well, you have the basic structure of this song, a general sense of where you want it to go. You can just leave room for the pieces that you know are missing and fill them in later when you've got a better idea of how the song is going to sound. And that's exactly what I did. I recorded some keyboard and acoustic guitar parts to sort of lay the foundation for the song.
2, 3, 4.
Tracked some accent stuff like tambourines and clapping. And I felt really good about what I had accomplished until I stepped back and realized that I just had a bunch of sounds. I didn't actually have a song. Now, I sort of knew this going in. I knew that my song was incomplete, but I felt like I had left the spaces necessary to complete it after I had already recorded these parts. And I tried to do that. I tried and I failed. I simply couldn't fill those blanks with melodies, much less lyrics that I actually liked. And I kept feeling constrained by the sounds that I had already recorded, like the chords that I had chosen to play. I kept thinking, oh, if I could just break out of those constraints, maybe I could turn this into something good. But I couldn't. I was trapped by the things that I had recorded into a device that makes that kind of editing very difficult. Now, if I was working in a DAW, this problem wouldn't be a problem at all. I could easily extract the parts that I no longer wanted to include. I could replace them. I could finesse the edits with really granular work. And I probably would have been working with a bunch of standalone tracks rather than a bunch of bounced tracks, which is what I was forced to work with because of the device of my choosing. This is exactly the kind of situation and the kind of complaining that probably makes a DAW user want to laugh out loud. Because my problem isn't the sounds that I had recorded or even necessarily my process. My problem is this device that I have chosen to use, despite the fact that it's kind of an anachronism and that it obviously has fewer features than I would have access to at a much lower price if I just did things the normal way. And honestly, that's a really compelling point, one that I struggled to answer in the context of recording this broke-ass Christmas song. But then when I got sick and was forced to take some serious time away from the project, I found myself reflecting on my process in general and realized that I had already answered this question many times over many years. Because it's really just a specific instance of a much broader and simpler question. Why would anyone choose to record with DAWless or similar gear? And I know why I chose to convert to DAWless recording. It's because I had become frustrated with the alternative. Typical recording via a computer and a DAW. I had all that power and all that precision available to me, and yet I couldn't seem to sit down and record almost any sounds that I actually liked. I found myself always in a cycle of trying to get a perfect sound or getting something and deciding that I needed to tweak it ever so slightly. Maybe try some new effects, maybe try a nice reverb to make it sound a particular way. On and on and on. So many things that I could focus on that were ultimately distractions from what I really wanted to do, which is to fill my limited free time with recording versions of songs that I had written. That's a very simple goal, and it seemed like I was introducing a really complex process to satisfy that goal. A process that was unnecessary. I mean, by that time I had spent a lot of time recording with DAWless devices, or like with simple things like the voice memos app on my iPhone. And one day I did just sit down with the songs that I had written and my phone and recorded versions of me playing through those songs with the voice memos app. And in doing so, I sort of rediscovered the way that I prefer to record. I want to write the songs in full with some instrument, normally guitar, and my own voice. And by write it, I mean write all of the core ingredients. I want it to have a melody and lyrics that go with that melody and chords that support that melody. I want those things to come together in a way that, at least in theory, I could sit down and perform. And then when it comes time to record that song, I really am just recording that simple thing. And there might be things that are added to it later, extra layers, accompaniment, maybe even some new ideas that become focal points of the final arrangement or production. But that's exactly what those elements are. They are arrangement or production. They are secondary, at least in my process, secondary to writing the song. That's not the only way to think about and make music, but it is the way that has worked the best for me for 20 years. And I've found that DAWless and similar devices like this Model 12 do a really good job of encouraging me to remain oriented in that way. To write song, capture song, then enhance song. And most of the time, that is exactly the way that I work. When I look back at the recordings that I made last year, every single one of them began with a completed song that I simply set out to capture or realize during recording. Now, in some cases, the song did evolve pretty dramatically during the recording process. I mean, take a track like Pretty Mess, which is the subject of my return to the Tascam DP6 video. I mean, that began as like a slightly saccharine, folksy, she walked in without a misstep, I don't know, but it became this like crazy, like synth almost sounding, just madness, unlike anything I had ever recorded. It's 2 a.m., get your test, black tights and a vintage dress. But underneath all of that unusual, for me, production, it was still fundamentally the same song. And the decisions that I made in creating the arrangement were decisions that I thought enhanced or complemented the core song. It was always there, sort of as a tent pole around which the rest of the recording was built. And that's exactly the kind of support structure that was missing during my recent Christmas song project. I started thinking about arrangement, about production, about capturing sounds, and honestly some pretty good sounds, without having a song at the core to support them. And for some people, especially DAW users, that process would be fine, but it's not an approach that works for me. At least it usually doesn't work, and it didn't work in this case. Every decision that I made as I was recording was a constraint on what I was really trying to realize and express at a song level. I guess I had put the cart before the horse because I was letting my arrangement and production decisions dictate what would happen in the song rather than allowing the song to dictate everything else. I started to have this sense of the problem in the middle of a flu, and I wondered whether it was just like a fever dream, a fantasy, sort of manifesting my own past onto the present. But then when I actually returned to the session, it was borne out completely in the tracks. I had recorded some nice sounds and left no room for me actually to do what I wanted to do, which was to write a song that I actually liked. So I scrapped the session, all the work that I had done on it, and started fresh. But I didn't start with a session on the Model 12. I started with my guitar, with a piece of paper, with the very simple goal of writing the song. That process was not easy, and thankfully I didn't capture any of it on video. I think that's actually another problem that I created for myself in this process, but that's a topic for another video. But I went through a lot of different ideas. Like this one. And how about this one? And this one. We won't always hang lights in the same tree. When you have alternate version names like folk and start numbering them, that's when you know things have gotten out of hand. Before arriving at something that started to feel right. And let me be clear, I'm not just talking about like changes to the lyric. I'm talking about fundamental changes to key, to melody, to structure, to tempo. Things that I could never have adjusted inside the bounds of the Model 12 or honestly any other multi-tracker or similar device that I'm aware of. And I wouldn't really want to, because those are part of the core of the song, a core that I was still building and that I really needed to have built before I even turned to a device like this. And that's exactly what I did, methodically, one line and demo at a time, until finally a song was done. And then today, I returned to the shed to begin work on Christmas Song Mark II, but also really to test my hypothesis, to see if I would feel better about my process and the results after reorienting to put the song back at the center. And the answer is an emphatic yes. Despite the fact that I couldn't just sit down and run through the song with voice and acoustic guitar, because my still recovering voice couldn't really make it through the entire song. But that's okay, because even after I broke that into parts, the song was still there. I recorded the guitar and left space for a vocal that I had already written. And then when I cut the vocal, I was just filling in those spaces. This year our lights hang on different trees. And after filling track 2 with vocals, I sat back and I had the song. There it was, acoustic guitar and vocals, that's it. All of the real meat of what I'm trying to convey was already there. And now I just had a bunch of blank tracks available so that I could enhance that, add some extra colors or flavors, but that's all just window dressing for a song that was already there, a song that existed before I walked into the shed to do this work. I did a little bit more work, some tambourine action, and this really kind of hilarious organ part. There's still more I'd like to record, but this is enough to have reinforced the message that I'm trying to convey to myself and in a strange way to you in this video. This DAWless process is working. And I think it's working because I came to the process with a clear idea of what I was trying to express, with a song that was, in this case, complete. Now, I don't think a song has to be performance ready for you to start recording. There's a long history of people coming into not sheds, but studios with ideas that then they communicate in a recording. But those ideas are usually actually pretty developed. And it's hard to define what a song is, but I can tell you that when I came into this shed in early December with a set of chords and a wordless chorus, that is not a song. Those are ingredients that a person with a computer and a DAW could use to build into a perfectly good song, but it's not a song until they do that work. And I think that contrast leads nicely into the main thrust of this video. Sorry it took forever to get here, but is DAWless multi-tracker type stuff right for you? And I think the answer is it depends. It depends on what kind of process you are looking for, not just as a recording person, but as a writer. If you are like me, a little old school, still thinks there's a difference between song and production, blah, blah, blah. If you're on that side of the spectrum, then a DAWless recording approach might really be a good fit, because you can expect you to come to a recording session with a completed song, something for you to build the recording around in as many pieces or steps as you deem necessary. But if you're the kind of person who likes to experiment, or who loves just like sound play, like likes to get into the details of recorded or produced sound even before you have a really clear idea of what your song is going to be, if you're that person, I think you should use a computer and a normal modern DAW. Neither of those approaches is better than the other, and it's possible that some people are using a hybrid approach, and they may prefer a hybrid solution, like to take a device like this and use it as essentially an audio interface to interact with a computer-based DAW. But if you're wondering whether to take the plunge into using multi-trackers or old school cassette porta studios or whatever, before you click buy, I recommend you ask yourself, am I going to bring completed or nearly complete songs to this device? Or am I expecting my recording device to do more, to help me get the songs to completion? If you're going to pick option A more often than not, then DAWless and similar may be a perfect solution for you. I know it has been for me. But if you're in option B, that's fine. Don't waste your money on a device like this. I suspect from recent experience, you're just going to find it too limiting. Find something that gives you more control, more precision, and the ability to rearrange the pieces that you are building at will. And you will be happiest if you choose the method of recording that is right for you and that allows you to manifest your music in the way that you find the most fun and gratifying. And now we've reached the end of my little sermon/pep talk. I'd love to know your thoughts, including whether you record with DAWless or similar devices or don't, and why. I'd love to know whether your reasons resonate with the shit that I'm saying in this video. And I hope you stick around to hear the partially complete version of my extraordinarily delayed Christmas song. Please pay particular attention to the organ part, which is unbelievably crude. I am not a good piano player at all, and that in real time felt a little bit like a car rolling around the roller coaster of this particular song. That's kind of a dumb simile, but I hope it suggests the amount of excitement I get when I'm just like adding elements to enhance the song that I brought to the session. Okay, that's actually all. Thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate you. Take care of yourselves, and I'll see you around.
This year our lights hang on different trees, but there's a star both of us can see. Broken needles at my feet, swept in memory. I believe that's too big for the door. A pile of gifts we barely afford. In the carols a dream, and I know how deep, 'cause I am planting seeds that you planted in me. I believe in evergreen. Oh, I am planting seeds that you planted in me. Yeah, I believe in evergreen. I believe in
Oh, that organ. That organ's my pride and joy. Thanks for watching.